line, and then for most of the scripts, we'd write something, then trade it off to the next person who kind of added on and put it, and then add on.
Yeah, we'd write and swap, and even for like the idea for shooting what became the teaser, the pilot. When we decided to actually let's shoot something, it was literally as quick as, okay, Rob hammered out one quick scene on the airplane. I bought a camera the day before we flew out, and we figured it out in the green. We figured out how to use the camera in the green room. But this is what we do. I mean, it wasn't a foreign idea to tell a story on film, because I write all the time, Rob writes all the time, so there was no how do we go about this?
No learning curve.
Let's just do this. The only new factor was combining our senses of humor in a more organized fashion. We obviously play together well, but in terms of putting that on paper and getting it honed down to what he wanted to be. But again, that was a seamless process. It was just doing it for the first time. That was the only new part.
There's obviously a lot of other people you've cast in it who are involved in the cons or not, whatever. Did you write them and then ask them, or were they all just going, write me in?
Well, because of the way that we did it, at first, like Rich said, he bought a camera, we flew to a con, and we were like, let's see how I had written a scene in the green room, so we kind of like threw Matt in something. We threw Matt Cohen, I'm saying, and Osric Chow in a couple scenes. So he was Matt, Osric was Osric, and then we sat around to write the show. So we had those characters that were kind of already going to be. I think if we would have gone back, we would have renamed them something else.
And Matt is definitely not playing Matt, though.
Right.
The character's nothing like himself.
So the characters in the show are kind of inspired by real life people.
But it wasn't about people clamoring to be in the show. It was, when Rob and I sat down, we decided what's the best sort of mix of fabric we can use to tell the show that are fictionalized. Sometimes they're based on the person, sometimes they're not. Like Matt's case, for example. There's no correlation between Matt Cohen and the guy he plays. So it was more about making the green room or the script itself interesting and populated by interesting and varied characters. And then we looked within our friend group, which includes the supernatural universe and outside that universe, to see what actors we know that slot in that spot really, really well. We pulled a lot from the supernatural universe, because we have a lot of talented friends in the universe, but also there's a shorthand. They know the world, they get it, they know the gag, so there's not a lot of explaining that has to go on about this is what this should feel like, this is what this is. They know firsthand what it should feel like. What it is.
That's right.
And that certainly made it easy. And we've also worked with a lot of very distinct personalities in the world, and to be able to sort of channel those people who know those personalities, or at least understand what we mean when we're describing them, was also really, really great.
So you have been to obviously a lot of supernatural conventions and have kind of made your own place in that convention world, and then this comes out of that. I'm seeing it as kind of a cyclical thing, but what's your experience been with creating your own kind of feel for that con out of being, asked to be there and do stuff, and like the karaoke kings and the different emceeing of ceremonies? Like, what's your experience been with that?
I always draw the parallel to any job, because conventions are super fun, but at the end of the day, we were hired as individuals to come be entertaining at some level. And I just don't know how to half-ass something, so that if I go into a situation and I'm being asked to do something and I feel like it could be improved upon, my goal is to improve it. And the convention circuit, which was a tried and true format, just needed some updating, some tweaking, in my opinion, because if we're not having fun backstage, it's hard to translate that into fun on stage. So one by one, we all kind of, and it may have been me that started the conversation, but it took everybody agreeing to go forward with it, and we reinvented what it is so that we're having fun, and then if we're having fun, it becomes fun. And then Kings of Con was born out of the same thing. It's, Robbie has said in an earlier interview, and I think it's true, we had the idea of all the things we already said. We have these funny ideas, we have these funny experiences, we're filmmakers, but then, on top of that, if we're going to be away from our families for 18 weekends a year, and sitting backstage in green rooms for 2 hours at a time, let's not, just waste time. Let's make hay while the sun shines. We're storytellers. Let's tell a story. Let's do this thing about this world, because this is the world we know. And every time we go to our friends outside the universe, the Rick Gomez's and the Josh Myers and all your friends, and we try to explain what the world is, people just stare slack-jawed because they don't. If you've never been to a convention, it doesn't make any sense. It's like trying to describe Prague to somebody. Like, you don't know the architecture, you don't know the lay of the city. I get there's a building and a river, but the rest of it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's what conventions are to the people on the outside. And I know that because that's what they were like to me before I got into it. So that to me made it a fun universe to explore cinematically and from a storytelling standpoint, and for Rob as well. Because we are making a show that will resonate with fans who go to conventions. But we are not making a show for fans of conventions.
We didn't
We're
want to be
making
like
a show for people.
We didn't want it to be like an
Should-
inside joke.
Should be the universe itself should be
Standalone.
in the same way that Star Wars isn't just for people who've been to space. It's got a broad audience, and so we feel like this is our backdrop, and our world is one that is familiar to a lot of people. But even for those for whom it is unfamiliar, it'll still be funny and engaging and new and interesting.
Well, that's the thing about our show too. It's at the end of the day, it is a situational comedy about these two friends. That's what it is, and the backdrop just happens to be these conventions.
And as the backdrop is fandom,
Mhm.
you then had your series funded by your fandom.
Right.
Can you describe that journey and also what you learned, or unexpectedly perhaps from your
Sure,
fans?
yeah. I mean, and that was, something we hadn't planned on doing, and then we were kind of series of circumstances kind of thrust into, and it wound up being an amazing. I mean, him and I never imagined that we would be doing that, like crowdfunding. The whole thing kind of made us feel kind of awkward at first, but our fans, the Supernatural fan family is never ceases to amaze me how supportive they are, and they came out and supported in such a way that it gave attention to what we were doing. So more than just having the fundage, it was about having other people, because we got press off of it because we did so well because of these fans. And so it turned heads, and people were like, what is that? Which ultimately led to it being picked up by Lionsgate and Comic-Con HQ, which is why we're talking to you here. So it was amazing, beyond expectations, that whole experience.
Somebody asked us earlier if it was a negative, then I think they were looking to see if there was a negative in the process,
Like
in terms of you have
repay.
to do all the perks, and I'm like, that's like writing thank you notes for all the gifts you got. It's hardly
Yeah.
a negative, like it's really a positive.
We needed help.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity we were provided by the fans of the show, who take a great leap of faith in putting their energy, support, and sometimes money behind an idea that they are just trusting we know how to execute, and that isn't lost on us. We understand that it's one thing to be a fan who supports you by watching your work. It's another to be a fan who supports you by paying for it.
And early on in the process, because we were still sort of, I think of like Bambi, the deer legs, like not quite walking yet, and like gave us the confidence to go like, wow, okay, if these people are investing in this is happening.
Yeah.
We are doing this. You know what I mean? So it gave us the sort of motivation to go, get laser focused and get this happening. So it was inspiring.
It seems like both with the things you were doing at conventions and now with this, you've kind of broken down barriers between celebrity and fandom more than some conventions manage it. Can you talk a little bit about, have you had a different experience, do you think, than some other celebrities, and what do you think of all that?
I don't know what other
Yeah, we can only really kind of
celebrities-
speak for our own experience, and certainly it feels unique. The bond between the Supernatural fans per se and the actors.
I think there's a
that are
lot
on
of that is
stage.
born out of the actors
It
involved.
feels like that.
I know we say this a lot, and I'm sure it sounds like a cliche, because it sounds like a cliche coming out of my mouth, but the actors that are regulars on the Supernatural convention circuit are incredibly nice, normal people.
They seem like it.
And they truly are. That's not, I have to spend a lot of time with these people. You didn't team me up for that. You didn't ask me if they're nice, normal people, and I'm going, yes, they are. I'm bringing this up out of the blue because it's true. And I think that feeds the idea that you're talking about. For myself, for Rob, for Matt Cohen, for Jared Jensen, Misha, for everybody up there, we don't look at it as a dividing line between we're performers and your audience. I've always said it, and I believe it's just me saying it, but everybody else enacts it, which is we're all just people. We just have a different job. Our job is higher profile. If I sat around and watched you do your job, then I'd have questions about it, you know? So it's not about a caste system. It's about exposure. You're exposed to what I do. You're exposed to what Jared and Jensen do. That affects you in a certain way, and you have questions about it, or you want to experience it closer or firsthand. But that, when you look at it through that lens, there's no barrier to break down, because it's simply a perception of who knows more about whom versus who has more value than whom.
And we honestly really love it. You know, it's inspiring for us. Some of the experiences, you know, we've been doing it for about 7 years. The conventions for about 7 years now, all over the world, and all just supernatural, right? So, and some of the moments you have, you know, some of the Saturday night special moments, some moments at Q&As, or even in photo ops or meet and greets that are like you never forget, you know. And it's those moments where it doesn't feel like a job, and it does feel like we're just human beings relating to each other, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, and look, I thoroughly believe that, but for the fact that the convention circuit was so strong for this show, you know,
The show-
Rob and I would have become irrelevant in this universe a long time ago.
Right.
Because, you know, I thoroughly believe that because of the convention circuit, because of our involvement in it, because that has kept us relevant with the audience and alive on social media, that has led to me directing. It has led to Rob's character return. It has led to us being able to do this show. So we have benefited greatly from the support that the fans provided us. So it is our great pleasure to go from city to city and return the favor and be entertaining and do the thing that we do that people seem to enjoy. So it's a win-win for us. We have a great time doing it.
And the show, I mean, and, you know, it led us to create the show, which is very much about, you know, something I think the fans will really dig. Fans of our show and then other fans of other shows even, but because we're the boobs, you know, we're the goofballs set within this backdrop of the conventions. So I think it'll be a fun little window in, sort of behind the scenes, you know,
and it is fiction. When you see it,
yeah, exactly.
most of it
amplified version.
Not happen.
Yeah.
I
So
like
speaking-
the idea that God and Gabriel are boobs, you know.
Oh, they are.
That's right.
So speaking of social media,
Yes.
we're live on Periscope and Twitter. There's about 400 people watching right now.
Hi,
Heart.
Hi, 400 people.
So questions that they asked was, what was your favorite moment while filming season 1?
Mm-hmm.
And will you be releasing bloopers?
Oh, we're definitely going to
Definitely
do
release-
the editors on strict orders to definitely be putting together some sort of gag reel.
Yeah. So
We'll make the show first, and then we'll make the gag reel.
And then
favorite moment from the set?
I mean, you know, there are several moments that where we had a lot of actors coming in and working on the show. They were ultimately doing us favors, who just gave us such great work, 100%. People like Kurt Fuller, who's been in everything and actually was in Supernatural, and we love him so much. And he came in and he knocked it out of the park. And that was, for Rich and I, at creating the show, it just like were moments like that where we're like, wow, it was mind blowing.
And the great thing about Kurt Fuller, I want to say, is that we reached out to Kurt. We wrote the role with Kurt in mind. We're not great friends with Kurt. We know Kurt a little bit, but it wasn't like I see Kurt all the time, and he didn't know anything about it. So once we get into pre-production, I call Kurt out of the blue. I never talked to the man, and sort of pitched him this idea on his voicemail. And he calls me back and he says, yes,
Yeah.
I don't need to read the scripts, I'm in. So he did it. He jumped on board without, and he's in it a lot. And so I was just stunned by
Yeah.
that. That was such a thrill because he had no reason to say yes other than he felt like his gut told him it would be fun. And
you know,
that's awesome.
and everybody did that. It was the whole shoot, which we just finished, was fresh in our heads. We followed that Supernatural model where we wanted from the beginning. We said we want people to work in the show who wanted to be there, who were, the spirit of the project was fun, and we assembled this great group of people.
Right.
Made it fun to go to work every day. It was terrific.
Right.
You've referenced quite a few of those antics, the fandom antics. I'm sure some of them will end up in the show, but are there any that you could share, one or two memorable?
The one that we've been sort of sharing is that there was a real life story where, and this is the kind of stories we draw from, where we were in New Jersey and we got there, went to our hotel rooms on the 9th floor. He was in room 911, I was in room 923, and I phoned him from the room phone to see if he wanted to go down and have a beer, and and I just pressed 911, and accidentally got the emergency operator, who I thought was Rich, and I was like, I get the bit, Rich. It's not funny anymore. Can you just talk to me like a regular person? They're going like, what's your emergency? Who's in the room with you? Where are you? I was like, and then I realized what I'd done. I was like, God, I panicked and hung up. I ran down to his room and knocked on the door and relayed the story, and then the cops ended up coming. So we, of course, took that story.
And then the fiction takes over.
Exactly. So that's the kind of thing we do. We take that kind of story, like, this is an episode. And we sort of...
So you filmed you using footage for some of the cons as well?
No, we don't. We went to Phoenix Con. We were lucky enough to sort of make a deal with Creation to get their unwavering support, and they in turn allowed us to shoot one of their conventions. We shot in Phoenix, and anyone who's at Phoenix saw us doing that because we were all over the place. And that's really more for the title sequence and for some bumper material that might be sort of interstitial between scenes.
Sure.
But everything else is set on location. Everything else is shot in LA on location in a controlled environment.
Because the truth of the matter is, even if we wanted to shoot at those conventions, him and I have no time.
Well,
since we're like the co-hosts now, we kind of...
And it takes a lot more. You know, the fact of the matter is that you've never seen a show made, it just takes a lot more control over everything than you have in terms of sound, light, talent, everything else. So it wouldn't really be feasible unless we were doing a documentary, which we're not doing, which I think confuses a lot of people.
I'm sure people will still think it's a documentary when it comes out.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like Mish's mockumentary on the show that people still think was real.
Well, except for ours isn't fourth wall. I mean, like, there's something about Misha's that might be confusing, although...
Because he's saying...
But he's talking to the camera.
Yeah, right.
Like, ours is not structured in that way at all.
It really is more Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Solely as a show.
Yeah.
Still, I can't wait for someone who's going to their very first Supernatural con after seeing this, and they go up and they think it's you.
Yeah, right.
Like,
oh, no, totally.
So after your 12th divorce or
exactly,
whatever.
Exactly. After your nervous breakdown, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know.
So in your history of, like, conning, right, do you guys have pro tips for folks that...
for fans or for performers? For fans, I always say hydrate. It's so important. You know, look, my only experience is Supernatural doing conventions, and my only goal in doing the Supernatural convention, hosting and you know, sort of guesting, is that I hope that anyone who goes to Supernatural Con and then goes to a con for a different show is deeply disappointed. Because I think that we do a good job of doing what we do and putting it on at a high level, and so I say to fans who are experiencing their first Supernatural Con, I always say, you know, expect to be surprised and in all the right ways, because I think it's a lot more, even when you watch it on YouTube, I think it's a lot more fun, a lot more relaxed, and a lot more engaging, and everybody's a lot more low-key and down-to-earth than people expect.
And Jensen and Jared on down, I mean, everybody is...
Yeah, Jensen and Jared, once they get their toupees on, they put gas in the robot, and then out it goes.
Make sure you have a little whiskey in their coffee.
Is it true Jensen named the show? Titled it? I read that somewhere.
Our show?
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Well, he's been going around saying
But hey, if it gets us headlines, then yes he did. No, he didn't. You know what he did? He named what he did do, and this may be the thing, is we did Tough Mudder together, and he named our Tough Mudder team Kings of Con after the show.
That must be it.
And then Richard made T-shirts, which we all wore.
Yeah. So that he named he dubbed our Tough Mudder team.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Kings of Con.
So do you see this as being something that could go on for several seasons, and do you have other actors that you'd really love to write in?
Yes and yes.
No, Rob and I die at the end of the season.
Spoiler alert.
That's what I was looking for, with spoiler alerts.
Yeah, it's a comedy, but then we die.
It's right. It's a comedy / bloodbath.
No, we were already got some ideas for season 2. Like, that's the cool thing about this is we're still in it. They're still doing the con, so it's like the stories just keep coming.
Yeah, it's not the only thing that's going to keep us from doing the show is if we stop doing the show. It's like, you know, it's an endless pit of ideas and characters that can come and go, and the world is fresh and new. And the fact that it is, because of what it's, the only core elements to Kings of Con are the Kings, meaning, you know, it works if we're in a green room, it works if we're in a boat. It doesn't really matter, because the whole story is and spine of what the series is about our relationship, the comedic relationship between the fictional characters of Rob and Rich. So as long as
we should do an episode on that boat.
Was that just
Supernatural Con.
Let's see. That budget just went.
More crowdfunding.
Yeah, but the
You loved it on land. Now I love it. Just wait.
the stories keep happening, and I think a fun thing to do while writing it is kind of challenge ourselves to keep it real, because some of the more interesting things are the real life or the inspired by real life things that are happening.
Well, one of the notes, speaking of, like Rob was talking about the episode in the 911 episode, and one of the notes we got back, and we got virtually no notes on the scripts from the executive producers at CCHQ. They loved the stuff. But one of them was like, yeah, but I don't think the cops would come to your room. Or like, brother, I hate to tell you this.
They came to our room.
They came to our room. Like, this is not us making this stuff up.
Yeah.
So,
Well-known fellow.
you know,
you're on better
so
terms.
that's funny. The only thing they pegged as not realistic was the one actual thing that happened.
I've had that happen at work all the time because our area code is 919. I've had at least 3 missed dials now, and they always have to come.
Yeah, they always exactly.
You've got a witness from outside if they
Right.
say that
That
again.
happens.
Like it
That's right.
happens.
Yeah.
They have to come, even if you're like, and then they get there and you're like, oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's cool. Bye.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing is I think we have we had just an amazing time shooting the show. We got so lucky with the crew we put together, and we can't even take credit for it. We hired a producer, Nate Young. Nate Young brought in Tina Dinsmore, who became our boots on the ground producer, and they assembled a team. Right? She's great, right? Producer Tina Dinsmore put together a team that was just bar none astonishing. Mark Evans, DP, everybody wise and more grounded spectators to the tomfoolery that we're accidentally creating in spite of ourselves.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's sort of like real life.
Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
Is there a specific moment or something coming up in the first set, in the first season, that you just can't wait for the fans to see?
There's several things.
Several. I can't even every minute of it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh,
Give
people
me,
are gonna like
give me
this.
an episode number, like the very first one.
Yeah,
Listen, I'm not going to play favorites because I feel very solid about.
And I would like
Are you gonna say
102. I'm saying right away.
Yeah, right away.
102.
Yeah.
There's some great.
I'll be honest. Also, 109.
Hey, but also, oh well, yeah.
109. So
Hang in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Just
very
hang
excited.
in. There's each one's great, and
Yeah.
it's you'll be able to binge watch real quick.
Can we now expect at Supernatural Cons for you to be doing photos as Rob and Rich, the Kings of Con, from the show, as opposed
The
to
me-
Rob
the
and Rich?
Medicare-
Yeah.
I mean, it's already kind of. I mean, Rich and I do a photo op anyway, so it's already happening now
Yeah.
that's become people have
But you'll have
kings.
to be your characters from the show.
Right,
not
right.
Your characters from
Fortunately,
Fortunately,
It
we play
doesn't
ourselves
take-
and wore our own clothes.
yeah. So
It won't be hard to
it
cosplay
doesn't take a lot of
ourselves.
1 minute.
Okay.
As long as you wear the Halloween outfit.
It says comic-con
HQ.com. This fall.
And by the way, in case you're wondering, wait a second, hold on. It
It's
is no, don't say it. I'm going to